after being rescued from falling off the cliff. I suddenly stopped being obsessed with Jingyi. No longer chasing after him, showing concern for his well-being, or trying to please him. Instead, I shut myself in the prayer hall every day, devoutly chanting sutras. Even when he came to break off our engagement, I just nodded and said okay. Then continued to kneel and pray. Buddha bless me, Buddha have mercy. That day at the bottom of the cliff, I was poisoned, that's why I had no choice but to defile that young lord. It was just one night, surely I won't get pregnant, right? He won't be able to find me either, right? Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Holding up my skirts, I ran desperately through the forest. My body ached as if split open, but I dared not stop. Last night at the bottom of the cliff, drugged and out of my mind, I pounced on a handsome young nobleman who was hurriedly passing by, seemingly injured. Using my sash to tightly bind his wrists, like the lowest of courtesans. Writhing and panting in his arms, placing light kisses on his neck. Don't be afraid. I'm not a bad person, I won't harm your life. I'm just feeling hot, I want to beg you to help relieve this fire inside me. Sir, I'm going to touch you. Sir, I'm going to kiss you. Sir, I'm going to. And that young man, perhaps truly unable to break free, seemed resigned. Let me take advantage and defile him, barely speaking a word throughout. Only when I reached the peak of pleasure, crying out in ecstasy. He coldly laughed and whispered in my ear. If I don't kill you tomorrow, I'm not worthy of being human. Not an exaggeration at all. Those brief words carried such deadly murderous intent. Even now when I recall it, cold chills run through me from the depths of my heart. So when I woke at dawn, I didn't hesitate at all, got dressed and fled. Afraid that if I delayed, that young man would wake up and kill me directly. Oh, actually he wouldn't need to kill me. This royal hunt had the emperor leading the empress and princes to the hunting grounds. The tents across the mountain housed almost all the civil and military officials, noble sons and ladies of the court. If anyone discovered I had defiled a young nobleman last night, losing my virginity before marriage, I truly wouldn't be able to live. Miss. Thank goodness you're all right. A tearful cry suddenly rang out beside my ear. I was startled and trembled all over. Looking up, I saw my personal maid Yuan running towards me with red-rimmed eyes. Behind her was my fiancé Jingyi. And a group of noble sons and daughters, maids and guards. My heart sank straight down. It's over. All over. At last night's hunting banquet, the third prince held a poetry gathering by the cliffside pond. I don't usually like crowds, but came because Jingyi would be there. Yet unexpectedly, in such a public setting with so many eyes watching, someone dared to drug my wine. Just one cup, and my head spun, my body burned, my vision blurred. Sensing something wrong, I hurried to find Jingyi, wanting to beg him to take me away. But several young lords, drunk on wine, boldly teased while grabbing me. Jingyi, Yunlan is devastatingly beautiful and deeply in love with you. How can you be so unromantic, trying to break off the engagement multiple times? Look how you've driven our Yunlan, she's even pretending to be drunk to seduce you just to keep you. Jingyi, if you really don't want to marry her, then let me have the honor of escorting this beauty? Yes, I want to too. I've had my eye on Yunlan for so long. Jingyi, if you don't want this beauty, we're all waiting to court her and get lucky. As everyone joined in the commotion, Jingyi remained coldly indifferent. His detached gaze swept over my flushed, seemingly drunk face, pausing slightly. Then his thin lips parted as he said carelessly. Do as you please, escort her if you want. Better yet if you can make her stop bothering me forever. All these years being bound by that marriage arrangement from birth. Being entangled and tied down by this burden, I'm thoroughly sick of it. With these words, the whole place erupted in laughter. Several young lords immediately came over laughing, forcibly pulling Yuan away. They supported my powerless body and walked towards the door. Don't worry, Jingyi, I'll use all my skills to satisfy Yunlan. Guaranteed to save you from this misery and break off your engagement. I don't remember clearly what happened after. Only remember someone holding me, trying to get me into a carriage. Jingyi seemed to kick over a table behind us, cups and plates shattering on the ground. I pushed someone away, then crashed into someone else. Finally, losing my footing, my body went airborne, tumbling down the cliff. From the cliff top came a panicked, broken cry, Yun Lan. Such a high cliff, such dense woods, several guards got lost while searching. I was truly frightened to death. Miss, where were you last night? Ah, Yu Huan, I hurriedly interrupted Yu Huan, forcing a dry laugh and twitching my lips. Look, I'm fine now. Please don't ask anymore. What I did last night couldn't bear any questioning. Besides, even if you must ask, don't ask here. With so many eyes watching, if that young master wakes up and comes after me, I'll surely die right here. Thank you all for searching for me below the cliff. I'll never forget this great kindness. Holding everyone back, my eyes kept darting towards the carriage outside the woods. Guilty and anxious, I couldn't stay still at all. However, I was quite frightened last night and still feel scared. Perhaps we should all disperse now? Everyone please return to the cliff for wine and poetry. I shall head home first, farewell. After speaking, I gave a hasty curtsy as a farewell gesture. My feet felt like they were on fire as I picked up my skirts, ready to run towards the wood's exit. Xue Jingyi, who had been silent since we met, suddenly grabbed my wrist. With tightly pressed thin lips, he looked at me with an indecipherable expression. Let me escort you. Last night, I failed to protect you properly. No need. I cried out in alarm, my voice rising as I waved my hands repeatedly. No need to trouble Lord Xue, I can manage on my own. Xue Jingyi's hand froze midair. His ink-black brows furrowed slightly. His eyes clouded with conflict and agitation I couldn't comprehend. Lord Xue? Yes. I nodded, taking a distant step backward to widen the gap between us. Last night I was presumptuous in forcing Lord Xue to escort me. I was thoughtless. Today my carriage driver and Yu Huan are here, so I can return by myself. There's truly no need to trouble you. A sudden silence fell over everyone as they stared at me in shock. Xue Jingyi also lowered his gaze to study me for a long while. His eyes were deep, seeming to churn with emotions I couldn't understand. But in the end, it all dissolved into a cold sneer. If you've truly had a complete awakening and won't cling anymore, that would be more than I could ask for. Rather than putting on this act. I truly hope that when I come again to break off the engagement, you won't. All right, I quickly nodded, agreeing readily. When Lord Xue comes to break the engagement, I definitely won't try to hold you back or plead. This way, both our parents who have always supported me shouldn't make things difficult for him anymore. But for some reason, even though I finally agreed to break the engagement, instead of showing joy, Xue Jingyi's expression suddenly froze, a trace of darkness flashing in his eyes. You. Anxious inside, I had no patience to wait for his halting words. I hurriedly curtsied farewell to everyone and turned to board the carriage. Yu Huan followed behind me in confusion, watching as I pulled down the carriage curtains like a thief, somewhat dumbfounded. Miss, am I dreaming? Are you finally going to be good to yourself? Those words stung inexplicably. I reached up to touch my nose, took a breath, and leaned close to whisper to her. After entering the city, quietly get off and find someone on the street. Give them some silver to help me buy medicine. Yu Huan blinked at me, asking earnestly, what medicine? But her clear gaze made me blush. I coughed lightly and turned away. Contraceptive medicine. What? After returning from the hunting grounds, I used injury as an excuse. I stayed confined in my residence, refusing to see anyone. For more than half a month, I spent every day cooped up in the prayer hall, sincerely praying, Buddha bless me, Buddha have mercy. It's been over half a month now, and there's been no disturbance in the capital. So everything should be fine, right? That young nobleman must have chosen to silently swallow this grievance. And won't come looking for me again, right? After all, those who could appear at the royal hunting grounds were either wealthy or noble. That young man must also be a prominent figure in the capital. If word got out that he was tied up and defiled by a woman, he wouldn't be able to save face. Miss, Lord Xue's birthday banquet invitation has arrived for you. Yu Huan suddenly pushed open the door, holding an invitation with a peculiar expression. She had always disapproved of my humble affection for Xue Jingyi, thinking I was selling myself short. Yet ironically, she understood my obsessive love the most. Sigh, I thought after that day, Lord Shui would rush to break off the engagement. Unexpectedly, while the engagement remains, this is the first time he's actively sent you a birthday banquet invitation. Looking at it this way, perhaps Lord Shui isn't completely indifferent to you after all. I felt helpless and rolled my eyes at her. Do you even believe what you're saying? The only reason Shui Jingyi hasn't come is likely because he was stopped by his parents again. After all, both families' parents were quite satisfied with this marriage arrangement. Shui Jingyi sending me an invitation this time is probably because he can't come himself. So he simply invited me to the Shui residence, likely planning to bring up breaking the engagement publicly at the banquet. Yu Huan pursed her lips non-committally and shrugged. Well, anyway, I'll still give you this invitation. If you still have feelings for Lord Shui, this might truly be a good opportunity to reconcile. I don't want you to regret later not going to see him, not. There won't be a later, Yu Huan. I lowered my eyes and interrupted her. There won't be any future between Shui Jingyi and me. It's not just because I've lost my virtue before marriage. It's also because that feeling of weightlessness when I fell that day gave me a sudden sense of liberation. A kind of liberation that made me want to cry from finally letting go of my obsession. So liberating that I thought then, let it go, Yunlan, really, just let it go. Things like love and romance, none of that matters anymore. Gently embracing Yu Huan's shoulders, I forced a relieved smile. Staying alive is my top priority right now. Remember, not just Shui Jingyi, even if the King of Heaven himself invited me. Your miss absolutely won't step foot outside this prayer hall half. Ah! A cold gleaming dart, accompanying the end of my words, suddenly struck deep into the meditation cushion I was kneeling on. The ice-cold sharp blade missed my knee by just half a finger's width. There was a note clearly attached to the dart. Not many words, just 2 lines. Tomorrow at the 3 p.m, the Moon Pavilion 2nd floor. Cliff, dark night, accounts to settle. Signed, Wen Jiyan. 6th Prince, Wen Jiyan. Wen Jiyan, the 6th prince who controlled the capital's Iron Guard and wielded immense power and ambition. My body slumped back as I raised my ashen face, looking up at the merciful Buddha statue. So after all my earnest praying for over half a month, in the end, you didn't protect me at all, did you? Thanks to Miss Yun's blessing, the entire 2nd floor of the Moon Pavilion had been cleared out. When Jiyan wore a black ceremonial robe embroidered with gold, his long slender white fingers tapping lightly on the table. Though he had such a clear and handsome face that could stun anyone who saw it, his expression was cold and severe, emanating an icy chill. That night at the Western Mountains bandit raid, I had just been through a bloody battle and was already wounded and exhausted. Miss Yun's sudden attack caused my anger to flare up, adding injury to injury. I spent a full half-month recovering after returning to the capital, which is why I've waited until today to find you. 2. Settle accounts. Almost immediately, that night's words, "If I don't kill you, I'm not worthy of being human," floated back into my mind. The familiar bone-chilling cold crept up my spine, instantly numbing my scalp. During these past 2 weeks, has Miss Yun figured out how to give me an explanation? Thud. Catching the tail end of Wen Jiyan's words, I knelt down swiftly and sincerely. My forehead struck the ground with utmost honesty. That night I was schemed against and unintentionally offended Your Highness. I deserve death. I beg Your Highness to show mercy considering the circumstances and spare me this once. In the future, if Your Highness needs anything, the minister's mansion will assist with all our might. I knew I had a chance at survival. Otherwise, that dart last night could have killed me directly. The reason he didn't strike. I guessed it was perhaps because of my father, the Minister of Revenue, and my mother of royal descent. The current emperor was elderly and weak, yet had not named a crown prince. 3rd Prince Wen Hun and 6th Prince Wen Jiyan were the most likely contenders for succession. If Wen Jiyan could gain the support of my father, the Minister of Revenue, at this time, it would naturally add wings to a tiger. That sounds good. However, your father has openly supported my 3rd brother in court before. What makes you think I would believe your father would sincerely change sides to support me? When Jiyan smiled faintly, his expression unreadable. Based on your word alone? The sincerity I had prepared earlier suddenly lost all credibility in the face of this rhetorical question. I opened my mouth, wanting to say that the third prince only appointed his favorites and harbored dark intentions, and that my father had already been considering finding a new prince to serve. But indeed, right now these promises were just empty words, carrying no weight at all. Unless... marriage alliance. Wen Xian spoke softly, pointing out the solution. His eyes lifting slightly, conveying both languid grace and dominance. If I were to marry you, your father would naturally be considered to have aligned with me. No proof needed, it would be credible enough. However... Wen Xian paused as he spoke, gently setting his teacup back on the table. He raised an eyebrow and glanced at me, his expression meaningful. I have heard that Miss Yun has been betrothed to the Prime Minister Shui's son since childhood? And it seems you have had no intention of breaking off the engagement these past 2 weeks. Are you planning to still marry Shui Jingyi after taking liberties with me? Heh, such deep and unchanging love indeed. If that's the case, I won't force the matter. I truly felt like crying. Could I say that I wanted to break off the engagement? But Shui Jingyi hadn't come by and I hadn't dared to go out. But breaking the engagement to marry Wen Xian, I dared even less. Officials backing the wrong prince in succession struggles had happened throughout history. As long as their submission was sincere enough when the new emperor ascended, most had a chance at survival. But if I became the 6th prince's consort, that would be completely different. If Wen Xian failed to win the succession in the future, my entire family would surely die. It seems you cannot come up with an explanation for me today. Wen Xian's gaze swept across my face, and seeing I apparently had no intention of speaking, he suddenly smiled. His smile was handsome and bewitching, yet terrifying, without a trace of warmth. Then shall we settle that night's debt according to my methods? Come in. The door was pushed open immediately. A cold-faced guard in black clothes slowly walked in with an elderly man carrying a medicine box. Wen Xian turned his head and raised his eyebrows at me. My men checked all the pharmacies in the city the day before yesterday, and found no record of you purchasing contraceptive medicine. What's wrong? Were you too nervous and forgot to buy it? Or were you just so confident you wouldn't conceive that night? No. I did drink it. I was so scared that cold sweat was about to break out, and I instinctively explained. I asked someone to help me buy the contraceptive. The words came to an abrupt halt. The temperature around me withdrew in an instant, and I was completely stunned. Yu Huan also suddenly stepped forward and supported my back with her hand. Her hand was trembling badly too. I guess she might have also realized the issue we had overlooked for so long. I had drunk 3 doses of contraceptive medicine after that night. But my monthly cycle seemed to have never come. Counting until today, it's been delayed for almost 10 days. Wen Xian took in all my reactions, his thin lips curling slightly. Whether you drank it or not doesn't really matter. What matters is that I won't allow the possibility of you carrying my child and marrying someone else. So, Nan Shan. As Wen Xian spoke, he beckoned to the black-clothed guard behind him. The guard named Nan Shan immediately stepped forward and forcefully placed my wrist on the table. The elderly man's fingers then pressed against my pulse. Miss Yun, shall we make a bet? Wen Xian leaned back lazily in his chair, looking at me with raised eyebrows. If you are not with child, then that night's matter will be written off. Not only will I not pursue it further, but I will personally send Miss Yun and Mr. Shui a wedding gift. But if pregnancy is diagnosed... Swallowing hard, I maintained my composure and looked up to ask, then what? Wen Xian smiled, though his smile was cold and murderous. Both mother and child, today, will be killed, together. Stop! Without a moment's hesitation, I immediately withdrew my wrist from the royal physician's hand. Looking up at Wen Xian, no need to check the pulse. I will go to the Shui residence tomorrow to break off the engagement. And quietly wait for your highness to propose. Wen Xian raised his hand and added some hot tea to his cup. As he brought the teacup to his lips, he smiled. Are you sure she's not being forced? You know, I've always disliked forcing others. A smile immediately spread across my face, my eyes full of sincerity. Not forced at all. It's my honor to marry your highness. Who would have thought, by twist of fate? I still ended up attending Shui Jingyi's birthday banquet after all. When I arrived, the feast hadn't started yet, and guests were scattered around the garden chatting. Shue was among them, though his eyes kept glancing toward the entrance. So when I just stepped into the courtyard, our eyes met immediately. The deep darkness in his eyes made me pause. But Shue pressed his lips together, seeming oddly relieved. After only a brief pause, he walked over to me. I thought, "Happy birthday." The black silk box extended toward Shue interrupted his unfinished words. I smiled slightly, leaning forward to his side, and lowered my voice under his puzzled gaze. "I figure you don't lack for much, so this year I won't give you those mundane gold and jade items. In this silk box are our marriage contract and your birth date details. After today's banquet, we can discuss breaking off." My wrist was suddenly gripped hard, Shue's pupils sharply contracted. He looked at me in complete disbelief, his lips parted several times but said nothing. Only the grip on my wrist grew tighter. "What's wrong?" I blinked in confusion and asked. "Today is not suitable." Shue took several breaths, his Adam's apple bobbing, his voice extremely stiff. "Another day." "What's suitable or not about this?" I didn't quite understand. "Tonight after the banquet disperses, I'll go with you to explain things clearly to your father. Then we just tear up the marriage contract, you return my birth date details to me, and it's done, isn't it?" But Shue's expression grew increasingly grim, his voice unprecedentedly low and dark. "I said it's not suitable, so it's not suitable. But I'm in a bit of a hurry." I couldn't help covering my face, increasingly confused. "Weren't you looking forward to breaking it off before? Why are you being so wishy-washy now that the time has come?" Shue choked, showing some frustrated expression that was hard to put into words. "Anyway, not today. We'll discuss it later." I was really anxious now. What later? "I'm all ready." "Are Mr. Shue and Miss Yun having an argument?" A gentle and warm voice suddenly rang out from a nearby pavilion. Both Shue and I were startled. Looking up, we saw third Prince Wenhen sitting on a stone bench, smiling at us. Who knows how long he had been watching. And beside him, Wen Jian had his elbow on the table, finger pressed against his temple. His manner was completely casual and relaxed. His gaze swept over, finally landing on Shue's hand that was gripping my wrist. His thin lips curled up slightly, smiling meaningfully. My breath suddenly tightened. I hurriedly stepped back, freeing my wrist from Shue's grasp. Not noticing his dejected expression, I hastily curtsied toward the pavilion. "Greet the two princes." "Miss Yun, no need for such formality." The third prince smiled gently, nodding to me. Regarding the incident at my banquet where Miss Yun fell victim to a scheme, I should be the one apologizing. The surrounding guests had all fallen silent. My heart sank heavily. Father investigated afterwards and found that the person who tried to escort me into the carriage that day was Kai Lifeng, son of the Minister of Personnel. And the Minister of Personnel was aligned with the third prince's faction. The third prince's banquet, the third prince's people. So that poetry gathering that night was a trap set for me from the beginning. The third prince must have noticed that father had gradually become unwilling to serve him lately. And since Shue's father, Prime Minister Shue, had always remained neutral, not taking any prince's side. So he planned to use this scheme to force me to break off the engagement with Shue and marry Kai Lifeng instead. This way, father would have to continue serving him. But I didn't understand. Kai Lifeng failed that night. So why was the third prince bringing up that incident publicly now? Oh my, look at the commotion I've caused. Suddenly, the third prince acted as if he just realized he had drawn everyone's attention. He apologetically smiled at the surrounding guests. "I'm truly sorry, I didn't mean to disturb everyone's pleasant mood. I just overheard Mr. Shue and Miss Yun seemingly arguing about breaking off their engagement. I was worried it might be because Miss Yun was drugged with an aphrodisiac at my banquet that night. And Mr. Shue holds reservations about this. So I wanted to try mediating. After all, it wasn't Miss Yun's fault that night. Please don't mind me, do continue enjoying yourselves." After these words, who could still have the mood to drink? Discussions immediately broke out, and everyone's gazes toward me changed. Aphrodisiac? Isn't that a love potion? Could it be that Yunlan has already lost her virtue before marriage? At that time, Yinlan disappeared for a whole night after falling off the cliff. Maybe she passed out, or managed to endure it herself. Are you stupid? Have you ever heard of anyone being able to endure an aphrodisiac without a man's help? Exactly, didn't you hear the third prince say Xue Jingyi was discussing breaking off the engagement? I bet she's already lost her virtue. Now that you mention it, I remember when we found Yunlan. She was frantically running out of the woods, her clothes all disheveled. It really did look like. I understood now, the third prince's goal. To destroy my engagement and reputation, cutting off all my marriage prospects. Forcing me to have no choice but to marry Kylie Feng. Ah. The hand gripping my wrist suddenly lost control of its strength, making me wince in pain. But Xue Jingyi's expression looked even worse than mine. In his ink-black eyes, there surged an intense trembling that I couldn't comprehend. Clearly, he had finally realized, albeit belatedly, what it meant that night when he didn't escort me himself but pushed me to others instead. It's exactly what you're thinking. In a voice only the two of us could hear, I gave Xue Jingyi a helpless smile. Congratulations, Xue Jingyi, you've finally gotten what you wanted. I won't bother you anymore. It's just a pity, I had hoped we could break off the engagement more gracefully. Since things have come to this, we might as well announce the broken engagement publicly now. Just say that I lost my virtue before marriage, and you mind. The third prince misheard. Xue Jingyi's Adam's apple bobbed as his chest heaved twice violently. He suddenly spoke up, looking toward the two people in the pavilion. When he raised his eyes, all emotions were concealed, speaking as calmly as usual. I have no intention of breaking off with Miss. How about September 18th? When Ji Yan, who had been watching the drama with amusement, leisurely spoke up at this moment. He gently brushed away the tea leaves in his cup. His indifferent eyes lazily lifted to look at me. Would that be too rushed? I was slightly stunned, then shook my head. No, Your Highness may decide. Good, when Ji Yan raised his eyebrows and nodded, taking a sip of tea. Come over after you finish talking with Mr. Xue. I've let the tea cool for you. With these words, the entire venue fell silent. Everyone was shocked to discover that beside Wen Jiyan, at the empty seats table, a cup of tea had been placed at some unknown time. The third prince reacted the quickest, his expression darkening slightly. Pretending to be confused, he asked, "What do you mean by this?" It means. When Jiyan raised his eyebrows and put down his teacup, his voice cold and clear. That night at the bottom of the cliff, the person who cured Miss Yun's drug-induced condition was me. The entire hall suddenly erupted in commotion. Xue Jingyi's eyes trembled violently as his body suddenly froze. Even the third prince's usual gentle and kind expression cracked for a moment. Brother, you can't joke about such matters. You weren't even at the hunting grounds that day. How could you have saved Miss Yun at the cliff? Even if you want to protect Miss Yun's reputation, you must consider the royal family's face. You are meddling too much. When Jiyan coldly spoke up with a sneer. That night was a private matter between Miss Yun and myself. As long as Miss Yun acknowledges it. Whether you believe it or not seems unimportant, doesn't it? If you have doubts, stop wasting words here. Go investigate yourself whether it was me that night or not. You. The third prince choked with anger, stuttering you twice without being able to continue. When Jiyan ignored him and turned to look at me and Xue Jingyi again. His expression was calm but meaningful. May I propose marriage tomorrow? Can you settle this today? Yes. I quickly nodded. No. Xue Jingyi, who had been stunned since when Jiyan first spoke, finally seemed to regain his senses. He suddenly grabbed my wrist, his eyes filled with panic and confusion. We can't settle this. The well-planned birthday banquet ended abruptly due to this drama. It was difficult for both sets of parents who arrived late. Though they were unclear about the situation and full of questions, they still had to maintain dignity, seeing guests off and handling aftermath in the front hall, leaving Xue Jingyi and me sitting in silence in the back hall. I thought you were just drunk at that time. After a long silence, Xue Jingyi's Adam's apple bobbed as he finally spoke with difficulty. I nodded, my tone light, I know. But Xue Jingyi seemed even more panicked, shaking his head. I never thought someone would dare use such despicable means at a royal banquet. You just don't like me. I softly finished his unspoken words. That's all. So Shwejingi, it really wasn't your fault. Whether that night, or breaking off the engagement now. Shwejingi wasn't wrong. Not liking someone was never wrong. Here. I pushed the brocade box to him again. Congratulations, you're free now. But Shwejingi didn't take it, lowering his head so his expression was unclear, his voice very low. I just haven't figured it out yet. Huh? I was bewildered. What? I used to truly think I wanted to break off the engagement. Yes, we were childhood friends, very happy, but I only saw you as a sister. You were completely different from the type of woman I wanted to spend my life with. But they made the decision for us, directly determining my future to be with you, by what right? So I hated that engagement, and firmly believed I didn't like you. As he spoke, Shwejingi slowly raised his head. His eyes showed clear confusion and helplessness. But that day when I saw you being taken away, I suddenly felt very angry. Angry at his hands holding you, and angry that you actually allowed him to take you away. When you fell off the cliff, everything happened very quickly, in just the blink of an eye. His hand lifted to press against his chest, Shwejingi furrowed his brows. But in that instant, I felt my heart stop. A kind of overwhelming panic almost drowned me. I know you were angry, resented me. So you wouldn't let me escort you, and said you wanted to break the engagement. At that time I really didn't believe it, I even firmly believed that in a few days you would cling to me again like before, impossible to drive away. But you never came again. And I found myself becoming distracted, inexplicably thinking of you. I don't know if it was just habit, suddenly being free after years of your persistence, and not being used to it. Or if I actually like Dash. The fingers pressing on the brocade box suddenly tightened. Shwejingi didn't finish that sentence. He just looked at me, his chest heaving violently several times. Yunlan, don't marry, don't break the engagement, wait a little longer, wait for me, all right? I'm about to. I'm almost clear about what that uncomfortable feeling really is. And after you figure it out? I laughed coldly. If you love me, I should wait joyfully for you to fulfill the engagement and marry me? But what if it's not love? What if you still only see me as a sister, and that discomfort was just habit? What should I do then? My voice finally rose uncontrollably. My eyes unconsciously reddened. Today everyone learned I lost my virtue before marriage. You want me to wait for you, but can Wenjian wait for me? What if you then casually say you've figured it out, you still only see me as a sister, you won't marry me? What am I supposed to do then? Shwejingi's expression suddenly froze, and he stood up in panic. I'll marry you. I will marry you. Even if I only see you as a sister, I'll still marry you. You don't need to marry Wenjian, I don't mind that you. Shwejingi finally couldn't continue. Because my gaze at him was too cold, too disappointed. Chasing after you for 7 years, loving without return, being sad and lost, those were all paths I chose myself. Not liking me wasn't your fault. But only starting to consider whether you love me or not after I gave up, that's the biggest insult to those 7 years. So Shwejingi, don't figure it out, really, never figure it out. Just keep firmly believing you only see me as a sister, firmly believing you dislike me. Never regret it for your whole life. Shwejingi's body suddenly trembled. His eyes inexplicably reddened. His fists clenched at his sides, blue veins standing out on the backs of his hands. I lowered my eyes and stayed silent for several breaths, then turned and walked toward the door. I didn't hear his suppressed response long after. But what if I can't? What if I do regret it in the future? My marriage with Wenjian was indeed set for the 18th day of the 9th month, 3 months from now. The timing wasn't very generous, to be precise, it should have been quite urgent. But a few days ago, when Wenjian took me to taste the wedding banquet dishes for the 3rd time, I had been busy with various wedding matters for days. Plus, my period, which was over 10 days late due to drinking too much contraceptive tea, finally came. I was in pain, exhausted and sleepy. To the point where I actually fell asleep while eating. The chopsticks clattered onto the table, and I buried my head into Wenjian's embrace. According to Yu Huan's recollection, Wenjian's first reaction was that I had been poisoned, his face changing dramatically. Just as he was about to call for Nan Shan, he heard my steady, slight snoring. I can't quite describe the expression on the prince's face at that moment. It was like he smiled, but also like he didn't. But he didn't wake you up, instead carefully asking all of us to withdraw, letting you sleep in his arms for exactly 3 whole hours. Yu Huan described it vividly, but hearing it just made me want to cover my face. Suddenly feeling that choosing death over marrying him back then might not have been so bad. But after that day, when Ji Yan sent several palace matrons in charge of wedding ceremonies to take over most of my trivial tasks. Thank you, Your Highness. The streets were bustling during the Bloomtide Fair as I held a flower lantern and thanked Wen Jiyan. Perhaps because we'd been meeting often lately to taste food together. Or perhaps because with the marriage settled, I no longer worried about Wen Jiyan killing me. After spending some time together, I discovered that when not discussing official matters or maintaining a stern facade, the relaxed private side of Wen Jiyan was surprisingly gentle and peaceful, like calm flowing water. Even more noble and pure than the third prince who was skilled at feigning kindness. So in front of him, I gradually let go of my reservations, smiling freely and openly. If it weren't for those matrons you sent to help, I definitely wouldn't have had time to come out today. When Ji Yan wore a black gold-embroidered robe, standing with his hands behind his back in the crowded street, his bearing naturally exuded an elegant dignity. Seemingly in a good mood, the corners of his lips held a faint smile. How will you thank me? Ah. I hadn't expected Wen Jiyan to follow up on this, and was stunned for a moment before smiling. How about I go get a flower lantern for your highness? The lantern shop at the street corner sold lanterns famous throughout the capital. They were said to be extremely effective for making wishes. Those lanterns weren't easy to obtain, you had to make a special request. You had to write on the lantern's surface yourself. You already got one lantern. When Jiyan raised an eyebrow at me, his eyes teasing, the shopkeeper said 1 per person, no asking for more. No worries, I can sweet talk, I'll definitely get one for your highness. I chuckled and turned to head back to the street corner to request a lantern. But when Jiyan gently held me back, his other hand covered my wrist that held the lantern, slowly raising it, until the lantern was level with my face, fully illuminating it. I blinked in confusion, about to ask, when Jiyan suddenly leaned down. Using the lantern to block the crowd's view, he placed a gentle kiss on my lips. The thank you gift is indeed sweet. I was so shocked my eyes widened. I stood wooden and dumbfounded as Wen Jiyan smoothly took the lantern from my hand, holding it himself. Then, he grasped my hand in his palm, not letting go again. Your Highness. Thankfully the night was deep and the surroundings full of lanterns, hiding my instantly blushing face. Wen Jiyan gave a soft in response, and just naturally continued holding my hand as we walked forward. Yu Huan and the guard Nan Shan followed behind us. Their conversation, though they thought was quiet, was actually crystal clear to my ears. Yu Huan, Miss Yun was blushing just now, right? Wasn't she so bold before? Hugging our prince and saying things like, "Sir, I want to kiss you." Ow. As if your master didn't coldly talk about killing my lady and her unborn child. Now look who's eagerly holding her hand. Hey, what do you mean eagerly? They've already been intimate, remember how bold your lady was that night? Now she's suddenly acting shy? It's been over half a month since the engagement and they're only just holding hands. Hey, get it straight, your master kissed my lady. My lady was poisoned that night, and now your master is kissing and holding hands. What, is he poisoned too? Our prince is cultivating feelings. They're about to be husband and wife, should they act like strangers? My steps suddenly stopped as I couldn't help covering my face, turning to look at Wen Jiyan. My eyes imploring, aren't you going to do something about this? But Wen Jiyan just smiled faintly and shrugged. Nan Shan's martial arts are too good, I dare not interfere. I actually laughed in exasperation, looking up coquettishly. You're clearly doing this on purpose. The words cut off abruptly. My smile froze on my face before fading away. When Jiyan raised his brows in confusion, following my line of sight. The second-floor private room window of the restaurant across was wide open. Shui Jingyi sat by the window with a gloomy expression, his eyes dark and deep. Who knows how long he had been watching us? Jian, Miss Yun are also enjoying the Bloomtide Fair? The third prince appeared at the other side of the window, smiling. Looking at us meaningfully. Oh, my mistake, future sister-in-law. After all, the marriage would happen soon, right, Mr. Shui? Shui Jingyi pressed his lips together, his gaze sweeping over Wen Jian holding my hand. Some emotions seemed to completely shatter in his eyes. Yet also, as if there was nothing there at all. The traditionally neutral Shui family had joined the third prince's camp. This news was told to me by my father. And Uncle Shui didn't know about it beforehand. It was Shui Jingyi who made the decision without authorization. His Majesty's health is getting weaker by the day. I'm afraid his time is near. The succession battle is about to reach its conclusion. Has Shui Jingyi gone mad to get involved at this time? As I spoke, I looked up at father's graying beard, feeling guilty. If I hadn't lost my virtue before marriage and been forced to be bound to Wen Jian, father wouldn't have to face such life-threatening danger now. Yunlan, court politics isn't as simple as you think. I chose Jian for his own reasons, not just for your sake. You needn't blame yourself. Father smiled and patted my head lovingly. However, your Uncle Shui hopes you can help persuade Shui Jingyi. It seems only you can convince that child now. I was stunned. Me? Yes, father nodded and sighed helplessly. That child Shui Jingyi has always been quiet and reserved, keeping everything to himself. The third prince tried to recruit him many times before but failed. This sudden change of mind to support the third prince. Your Uncle Shui questioned him for ages but couldn't get the reason. Only knows that the day he changed his mind and agreed to cooperate with the third prince was during the Bloomtide Fair. My expression suddenly froze. I blinked in confusion. The Bloomtide Fair? Yes, that day. Shui Jingyi sat dejectedly at his desk, the wine jar before him already half empty. Looking up at me drunkenly with a bitter smile. The moment when Jian kissed you. The moment he held your hand. I clearly saw what was in my heart. Never had I understood a thought so clearly. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to take back everything that should have been for us to do together. So when the third prince reminded me that you were married soon, I was tempted. I agreed to cooperate. The wine jar crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. Shui Jingyi suddenly rushed forward and grabbed my arm. The usually refined and modest gentleman now seemed like a madman possessed by obsession. Once the third prince wins the succession and takes the throne, Wen Jian will surely die. Your engagement will be void, the betrothal gifts, the wedding date, none of it will count. In all our years of acquaintance, I'd never seen Shui Jingyi so crazed. Terror showed in my eyes as I stepped back. But Shui Jingyi leaned forward, his grip on my arm very tight. Yunlan, I see it clearly now, I understand now. I like you, I love you. There's still time, you haven't married him yet, everything can still be changed. As he spoke, Shui Jingyi suddenly seemed to remember something and took out a birth chart from his desk. This is your birth chart, I never returned it. Our engagement still stands, it's still valid. When this is all over, we'll get married. We'll be like before. No, I wasn't good to you before. I'll make it up double, make up for all my past coldness. Shui Jingyi. I forcefully pulled my arm free, my expression cold. Our engagement was already broken. My fiancé now is Wen Jian. But we were engaged first. Shui Jingyi suddenly became agitated. Everything Wen Jian has now should have been mine. His long fingers suddenly pressed against my lips. First gently caressing, then gradually increasing pressure. As if trying to erase some mark, using great force. Finally becoming frustrated as if unable to erase it. Shui Jingyi cupped my face, urgently leaning in. Slap! A resounding slap landed heavily on his face. My chest heaved violently as I breathed heavily. My palm trembled slightly from the force. Shui Jingyi, what Wen Jian has now, I once held in my hands begging you to look at. All of it you considered beneath you and avoided at all costs, isn't that right? What do you think you're doing now? How dare you meddle in the succession fight for an engagement you once dreamed of escaping? The succession battle, winner takes all, losers perish. It's a matter that risks the lives of entire families. My father is the Minister of Revenue managing the empire's finances. Without taking sides, this position is even more likely to be schemed against. Getting involved is unavoidable. But Uncle Shui didn't have to. He maintained neutrality with such difficulty for so many years, and right at the crucial moment, you ruined it. Shui Jingyi, have you gone mad? Yes. I am mad. Shui Jingyi swallowed painfully, his eyes showing a trapped beast's grief. You think I haven't considered just letting it go? But Yunlon, having and losing is more tormenting than never having at all. I keep thinking about it over and over, can't forget it, can't help wondering. If I had cherished you back then, would everything be different now? The better you get along with Wen Jiyan, the more it reminds me. All this should have been mine. Shui Jingyi's Adam's apple bobbed as he pointed to his heart. Never mind you, even I didn't expect that one day, Shui Jingyi, would be so unable to let go. My learning and grace that I prided myself on for years, completely crumbled in the face of jealousy. That kind of regret really can drive a person mad, Yunlon. It makes me willing to betray my dignity and principles, just to return to the past. The entire study fell into deathly silence. Shui Jingyi and I silently faced each other in the stillness. Finally, I turned away my gaze and coldly turned my back. Shui Jingyi, from the moment I fell off that cliff, we can never go back. Stay out of the succession fight while you still can. Because even if the third prince wins and Wen Jiyan dies, I will die with him, with no regrets. The moment I stepped out of the study, I lowered my head and let out a long sigh. When I looked up again, I met Wen Jiyan's warm smiling eyes. Why is your highness at the Shui residence? I ran up to him and asked in surprise. Wen Jiyan looked down at me and smiled gently. Minister Shui let me in. After all, my fiancé is here. I came because Shui Jingyi has sided with the third prince. I pressed my lips together and decided to explain. But Wen Jiyan wasn't surprised. I know. I could tell from the way he looked at the Bloomtide Fair that day. I was stunned. You guessed it early on? Then why didn't you? Because it's fine this way. Wen Jiyan interrupted me with a faint smile. His eyes were full of deep gentleness. With him by third brother's side, even if I lose, at least you'll survive. He will treat you well. My steps suddenly stopped, and I turned back to look at him angrily. Before I could say I'll live and die with you, Wen Jiyan had already taken my hand. Let's go. The cool autumn breeze blew, rustling the slightly yellowing leaves in the courtyard. Yu Huan and Nan Shan started bickering behind us again. Oh! Now someone can see that their prince likes Our Lady more. Oh my, didn't you hear your lady just tell Shui Jingyi that if our prince loses, she'll die with him? Our Lady must be saying that out of righteousness. She's liked Lord Shui for so many years, and has only known your master for 3 months, how could she so quickly? Oh ho ho. Along with Nan Shan's schadenfreude. Wen Jiyan suddenly curved his lips and gave a cold humph. I turned back grinding my teeth and glared at Yu Huan. Are you trying to get me killed? Yu Huan knew she was wrong and quickly pressed her palms together at me. Sorry. I shut my eyes tight and took several deep breaths. When I turned back, I had put on an extremely fawning smile. Your Highness, have you heard of love at first sight, one glance worth 10,000 years? Or perhaps, heard of love growing with time, there are still days ahead? Or maybe knowing one's mistakes and correcting them is the greatest virtue? Your Highness? Don't walk so fast. After that day, I never saw Shui Jingyi again. The third prince's side was still making big moves, forming factions and pulling in powerful officials. Fighting neck and neck with Wen Jiyan in court. But the emperor remained patient. Even though he was so ill he could barely stay alive with medicine, he still wouldn't name a crown prince. Until the day of my wedding with Wen Jiyan. Miss, Lord Shui has sent wedding gifts. A royal wedding is different from common folk weddings. Wen Jiyan and I had to sit in the same carriage, circle the city once. Accepting blessings and worship from subjects. After finally swaying all the way to the gate of Wen Jiyan's prince mansion, Yu Huan handed me a gift list with an odd expression, lowering her voice. 2 whole courtyards worth, already sent into the prince mansion. Looking at it, the amount of gifts seems a bit off, it appears to be. Yu Huan paused as she spoke. Her eyes secretly glanced at Wen Jiyan. Wen Jiyan sat upright in the carriage in gold-embroidered red robes. His black hair tied high, eyes closed saying nothing. Making me momentarily recall when I first met him at the Moon Pavilion. That cold and murderous aura, overwhelming presence. the oppressive feeling that he could take a life with just a flick of his finger. "You Huan, why are you looking at me like that? I'm just the husband Miss Yun married out of righteousness. How could I compare to Lord Shue's childhood sweetheart of over 10 years? The sudden clip-clop of horse hooves at the street corner saved my life. A eunuch called out loudly, holding up an imperial yellow edict. "Imperial edict arrives. His Majesty is pleased with the 6th prince's wedding and specially dispatches the servant to deliver a gift. All hear the decree." The commoners, guards and maids all over the street knelt down. Wen Xiyan carried me down from the carriage and supported me as we also knelt. 6th Prince Wen Xiyan is virtuous in conduct and benevolent in heart, hereby named Crown Prince. After my death, he shall directly succeed to the throne. The eunuch's slightly shrill voice echoed through the entire street. The kneeling crowd was completely silent. I was also shocked numb. The emperor had waited until now to directly name a crown prince and issue his final edict. With this decree, Wen Jian's future ascension to the throne was set in stone. The 3rd prince didn't even have room to struggle and fight anymore. "Wife." Wen Jian received the edict with both hands. After kowtowing in thanks, he turned to look at me with raised brows and smiled. "Your husband has won." Red candles warmed the chamber as the wedding night felt too short. However, my wedding night was clearly not going to go smoothly. The gift list sent by Shui Jingyi lay spread out on the table. Wen Xian's eyes swept coldly over the total amount at the bottom of the list. As he curved his lips into a cold smile. "What an interesting coincidence. The total value of Shui Jingyi's wedding gifts matches exactly the bride price I initially gave you." The phoenix crown was already making my neck ache. Wen Xian's words made my head spin even more. The gifts equaled the bride price? Jingyi was. He's using these congratulatory gifts as a way to pay a bride price for you. Wen Xian's cold voice sounded from beside me. His hand on my waist tightened slightly. "This way, he can pretend he married you too. How fitting for childhood sweethearts of so many years." Tilting my head with a tisk, I felt like crying but had no tears left. "Are we really not going to let this go? If your highness dislikes it, shall I have someone return everything? You can decide for yourself." Wen Xian raised an eyebrow and smiled coldly. "You've known Shui Jingyi for years, while I've only known you for months. How could I make such decisions for you? Return them. Return them all. Tomorrow I'll have you Huan send everything back." My body could no longer bear the weight of the phoenix crown. I let out a long sigh and fell into Wen Xian's embrace, looking up at him with a smile. "Sir, I'm rather tired. May I rest on your bed? Or perhaps, could you hold me?" Wen Xian turned his face away with a soft laugh. The next moment, he suddenly bent down to lift me up in his arms, carrying me toward the bed. Meanwhile, from the corner of the room came whispered exchanges between two people. "Oh my! Listen to that! Your lady is taking the initiative this time. Ah! Your master isn't hurt this time, see? He still gave in anyway. My master, seems to truly like your lady, tisk. Yes! I win! Humph. Though my lady also seems to like your master a bit. Then I win too, humph."